Okay, welcome back. We've moved on a little bit. Now to bring you up to speed, all we've done is I've put the front section on the nose section. It's probably one of the better fits of any that you'll find it goes in. There's a tiny little bit of flashing on the fuselage section on its starboard side. Just light sanding stick across and then that goes straight on, hold it upright, and then with a capillary action with the glue running around the sides. Perfect, easy peasy. So that was that done. Then basically all we did, let's put the lid on that, all we did was install the actual auxiliary air doors. Now thinking about it, stupidly of me, I forgot to put them on before we did the nozzle. You can do them afterwards, but it's a little bit more fiddly, but it can be done, so don't panic if you haven't. But they're in now. Also we've just put on a few little extra bits down the tail section. That bit is on. I've got another bit in clamp as well for the end bit, the cap at the end, which will go on once that's all dry. So there we go, we're to that point with the actual bit itself. Right, here it is. It's been drying overnight. As we know, it's quite a bit of a filler job on this, so if we just get the old bands off, there's one and there's two. Now to be honest, this is probably the first filler job I've done in the last 10 kits, because before then I've always managed to actually test fit, dry fit, make it perfect, and then using the Tamiya extra thin glue and weld it. But as I said, this one was a little bit more extreme and I had to do a little bit more. This has been drying overnight now, so it's actually been on for 24 hours. Now for this I've got quite an old and well used sanding stick. I've got some of the Mastercasters sanding sponges, or any sponges you want to use, and I've got quite a worn one as well. I think what will happen is when using sanding sponges, I always cut them in half, it doubles the length. You know, for instance, there's the other half of that one. This is really, really rough, great for carving into stuff. This one isn't as much because it's used. So even though, you know, they're technically different courses, you can, you know, obviously when it's worn down a bit. Right, so what we're going to do, we're going to start with a sanding stick. In here on this side there is a very, very nasty joint. It's got plenty of filler and I'm hoping it's all gone off. Now don't use a really abrasive file when sanding putty, because what happens is sometimes it actually tears it away instead of sanding it off. So with a medium sort of coarseness, we'll just start in there and see what we get. Now it's quite powdery when you sand, and also remember, as we were saying, with the actual shrinkage factor, if you have got the time to leave it on overnight, put plenty on, and then that way all the time it sinks down, you won't have to do it again. But we might find after we've sanded this, we may have to come back and do it all over again because there's some shrinkage. So all we do, we're in here. Now there's no detail around any of this, so we're not worried about sanding anything off. If there was some detail, some rivet, what I'd actually use is a bit of Tamiya tape down to protect anything around. As soon as I start cutting through the Tamiya tape, I know I'm getting very close. So just keep on sanding here. Now don't forget, it's a lot of sanding in here, so keep feeling it to feel how it's actually going. And you're looking for lips and various bits. Don't forget, we've got to blend in the front side of that wing as well. So we all go around there like that. Now I'll carry on and sand all these end ones in, and then this big one at the top, we'll do that one together. So okay, as we can see, we've sanded in these nasty ones down here and the ones on the wingtips. And the same on these here. Now they need to be rescribed yet and re-riveted, but obviously we're just going to concern ourselves with the top one. Now we've got an air vent just in here, the excess panels, and obviously we're going to probably obliterate this area around here, but we're going to have to go back and do it again. Now using quite a worn file, I don't want anything that's going to be ripping too much in, but what we'll do is we'll go in, if I bring you in a little bit. Okay, so all we're going to do, keeping the file flat onto it, finger on the top of the actual area, little movements, and we're going to go 90 degrees to the join. and we just sand away all the way down, and we're going to make our way all the way across the actual join. So as you can see now, we've got most of it off. I've just started sanding with the sanding block, still keeping it sort of 90 degrees. And really trying to feel as you go, when you can feel it bite, and then just running your finger across, just trying to feel anything. Now if you moisten the actual sanding block as well, it will help because it will remove all the dust from the area. Got quite a joint in there. And there we go, we're just like that. Now what we do is then we'll switch to a finer sanding block, just like this. And just run over the entire area again. And then what this one's really doing is removing all the scratches that you've made with your sanding block, basically. So we're just going to go around absolutely everywhere, the entire wing with it. And we're checking all over, just to feel if you can feel anything. Then what we'll do in a moment, we're going to rescribe that entire area. We'll rescribe the entire thing, and then we're going to put a panel line across there as it has in real life. And then hopefully with that panel line going in and with the sanding, and now we've got it all nice and smooth, it won't be noticeable. So all we do, we use our P cutter, which is our Tamiya one here, and then all we'll do, we'll start down in these areas, put the blade in first, then move your template guide up against it, and then let the blade follow its own course, like so. And the other one, just here. Remember not to go too far. What you can do as well is just put a little a piece of the dyno tape, if you like. You can obviously use this for scribing just at the end as a block joint, so as soon as you get to as far as you like, and then obviously we'll just pick out these other ones here we filled, and then obviously we'll be doing the same with these and any other panel lines which you see which are going to need it. So we're going to rescribe the entire thing now. Okay, so we've rescribed everywhere. Now the other thing to do is in here you might be able to see that the actual filler has filled up all the rivets. So just using, I've just got a spike basically here like a needle, you can use anything, is literally just gentle pushes on where they were. Now you can buy re-riveting tools and various bits and pieces like that, but if you just give it a little push, you can just redo those. Remember, you don't want to be pushing too hard because all you're trying to do is just squash that filler back into a rivet. But if you work all the way around those, and then obviously these areas in here, just pick out any filler dust that's got in there, because obviously sometimes your airbrush can't get it all out. And then we just got to do the same on these as well. There's a few here, and obviously any that you've actually obliterated when you've actually been doing. And obviously we've got filler dust and bits in these circle ones, so we just give those a scrape round, just like so. Obviously we've got this one here, and there we go, we're all done. Right, as you can see we've got the old clamps out, because I'm having to pull it in nice and tight because I want a nice seamless finish across this back half down here, and obviously pulling it all down just to making sure we've got nice good seams underneath. You can see in there as well, so just by pulling it all down it just holds it into position. And then the usual thing, we'll just go a capillary action on the extra thin, and then we'll be leaving this aside for a few hours to all go off totally. So just let the glue do all the work. Make sure your clamps aren't actually touching particular points you actually want to glue, otherwise you end up with a flat mark from where the glue is. But we're just going to work it all the way around. There's a slight little step here at the top which I'm going to take care of. That just needs a gentle sand just to get that all in. And there we go. So we're going to leave that all clamped up now for a little while to go off. Give it a couple of hours, then we'll come back and get on with the assembly. Right, as you can see, we're certainly getting a lot more looking like a Harrier. Up in here where it joins, literally I used a drop of, hold on, excuse me, I used a drop of super glue and a bit of CA Kicker and just blended that in and re-scribed to make for a perfectly nice join. I'm really happy with it. I've just got to sand this back bit in here, but that's got to do a little bit more drying because I used that with normal glue. Now the tail isn't stuck, but that's in just to test fit. We've got the end point on here. I used a little bit of super glue just for speed. I've re-scribed everywhere around, and any points that are looking like they're going to be lost, I've just got this one to go. A lot of it isn't actually needs re-scribing, it's purely just full of filler. So we just give it a run round like that. And I've got to re-scribe in these the auxiliary doors. Now the thing is with these doors, looking at references, it looks like the 5th door down opens as well, only a little bit. So next time round I might actually just give that an opening as well, and opening up a little bit as well. But for this one it's going to be out of the box as far as that bit's concerned. Right, so I've just finished off taking the centre seam out of the canopies. We've got the other one here. As you can see, they've all come up very nicely. Usual way with the file, compound, a couple of sanding sponges right the way through it. There's a tutorial on the outside part, you know, the free YouTube ones, which incidentally I'm going to be transferring over in the next week or two into high res, so you'll see the high res versions, or I'll just do complete new ones. The Harrier, as you can see, it's a bit dusty where we've been sanding and re-scribing, but I'm happy with all the joins and the way it's gone at the moment. There's just a little bit more, tiny bit of sanding and filling I want to do just down in these joints, the wing roots down there, but apart from that it's all come together very nice. So the next thing, masking the canopies. Now for this you could buy a mask unless you're cheap like me and don't want to. So what we've got here is 10mm Tamiya tape, or you could use 6mm, or you could be cheap and cut it in half, which I tend to do a lot of the time. What I'm going to do is the 6mm. I'm just going to take a long strip, quite a long strip, just like that. Then because it's all one piece, if you like, which is quite an easy one to do, we're going to line this up with the bottom in like this, so we line up onto the bottom one, and then all we're going to do, if I bring you in a little bit, I'll try and show you how I do this. Okay, so all we do, and I'm going to put my nail where it curves up to make a tight little edge, and then what we'll do, we'll bend that up, and we're just going to curve it round, and then just you move along a bit, hold it with your finger, move along a bit, and then when you get to a right angle, stick your nail in the right angle, pull it downwards if you like, so it's got a good bend on it, and then we can go up to the finished area, and then hopefully you can see that. You can see how you get the corners, and it just curves up and goes through. Then all we do, you get your knife, which he says he's put down. It's alright, he's back. Okay. Then all we'll do is, obviously starting from the middle of the tape, if you hold it up to some light, you can actually look through it, so you can actually see where it goes. If I just pan you out again, sorry, wrong way, I'll get the hang of this one day. But if you hold it up to the light, you can actually see where it goes. And then obviously for the other bit as well, we're going to curve up. But as you say, if you start from the inside of the tape, the middle of the tape, you won't end up scrunching it down as you go. It's the same thing again, holding it up to the light so you can see where you're going, starting in the middle and down, and obviously from the middle of the other one you go down. Then obviously this piece here won't be wasted because we'll use that to do the top. So all we go is round. Now on the top, because it curves round, all you do, place it over and then gently push as you go round, and that will help with the curve. If you let it all bunch up till you get to one wrinkle, then it won't be in the right spot. And then all we do, we'll curve it down and gently push all in, and then using your scissors we just snip up like that, and there it is. Now with all your scraps you've got around your desk and all the rest of it, you can fill it in, but I'll just do it with this 10mm we've got here. So you just go over and then snip. Same with the back bit, a tiny bit more. And there we go, one masked up canopy, all ready for painting. Simple as that. Now obviously we'll do the same with the front, but exactly the same process. And there you go. Now little trick, I've got here other masks. If you're careful when you remove them, when you actually take them off of the thing, and then if you stick them to something very nice and shiny, like a piece of plastic, for instance, I haven't actually got it here, but the back of a CD case is a good one. Stick it to it, keep it flat. Sharp knife underneath, you can lift it off and use it again. And obviously from my point of view, because I tend to build quite a few of the same models, as you can imagine, it saves me a lot of time of having to redo it every time. Now that's great on a flat windscreen or things like that. When it's a total curve like that, you can't actually do it. That's the only drawback. But say you've got something with multiple places of glass, perhaps you're doing a Second World War aircraft that is something like that, keep your mask, stick them to one side, because you never know, you come around, do the model again, you can reuse it. And I've used some of those masks, literally they've been around for a year stuck and they're still fine afterwards. So there we go, that's masking up. Right, as you can see, we're to the point really of getting the canopy on. So what we've got here, I always stick them on lids, stops them getting lost, but I've already cut out from the film sheet, just can't pick it up, there we go, from the film sheet there, to go with the clear parts for the HUD. Now it's always a bit tricky lining these things up, because they do have a habit of moving and all, you know, bits and pieces like that. So what we do, we use our PVA glue. Now the beauty with this PVA glue, or any normal PVA glue, is they dry completely clear. If you used to use super glue, you run the risk of fogging and bits and pieces like that. So all we're going to do is gently put on the inside of both bits and push it round slightly some of the white PVA glue, just like that. And then obviously the bottom part, which is the bigger one in this case, goes in first. Now I'm going to have to do this so I can see it somewhat for me. If we zoom you in a bit, we'll try and all meet in the middle here. Okay, what we'll do, I've got my tweezers behind it like this, and obviously it's the curved edge towards you. We're going to slide this in. We're happy with the position, and then looking down the sides, we're okay. Now I don't know if you can see that here, but we've got the white PVA glue is covering the holes. I'm going to leave that and then put a pin through it a little bit later on. So that's the first one in, and then there's a smaller, thinner one at the top to go in as well. Now this is where you hope you've got your film cut to the same width, because obviously if it's too wide, it's actually going to spread the actual sides of the HUD. And to be honest, mine's a little bit wide, but I'm hoping it's got enough to keep it there. Okay, then when you're just about happy, we'll just manoeuvre it slightly and push that in home. And then what we'll do, the bottom one's just dropped, and obviously you're going to have to do is just flick it around just a little bit It might be worth it. I'm going to put some scissors underneath to just coax that part up again. And obviously you want them to be at the correct angles. Just like that. And there we go, that's the HUD in. So we'll let that dry just for a little bit. And once that's dried, and we're happy with its position and it's dust free and all the rest of it, then we'll get the cockpits actually on. Now it's time for the canopy. We've also cleaned this out. Make sure you're clean on the inside. Either give it a rub with your finger, polish it out, whatever, because obviously any bits in there is going to be quite tricky to get past the HUD. Normally with other models perhaps you can get a cocktail stick or a cotton bud in underneath there, but obviously in this case there's not going to be a lot of room. Now obviously we've got trouble because the HUD is very, very high in test fitting. It actually touches the top of the canopy. Not totally sure why that is, because everything seems to be fitting okay, so I think the HUD's just a little bit high. So what we're going to use, we're going to use our standard PVA, just to make sure. Now, as we said before, there is lots of different things for setting glass on and other products, and what I'm going to do is get hold of a few, hopefully in the next week or two, and I'll do a little show on it about actually fixing down clear parts and working with clear parts. If you've used a clear gloss coat like the Future, for instance, for putting that on, grabbing his bottle from the spray bay, there we go. If you're using that, you don't have to worry about things like fogging as much, because the acrylic coat stops that from happening. But straight onto plastic, you have to be careful. The other thing as well, if you're using liquid cements that allow it to run round, you're okay as long as they don't work up on the plastic, otherwise you can get fogging as well. It tends to be a little bit hit and miss, so I tend to stick with what I know, and I use a good quality PVA glue. The reason I like this one so much is, as I said before, it dries absolutely crystal clear. Even if I was to smear this completely over the canopy, it'll be very hard to see it. It's also like a bit self-leveling as well. So all we have it on the cocktail stick. Bring you in a touch. We just move this out of the way. Okay, so we're on the cocktail stick like this. Obviously you've got to put a lump in the middle, so we don't have to worry about that. So starting away from the lump, all we do is roll our cocktail stick and let it drag along the joint. Now there's quite a bit there. Because it dries clear and I trust it, I'm not worrying about it going up onto the glass as much, because I know it'll go clear. Now I'll get this zoom thing sorted out one day. So okay, what we're going to do now is literally drop fit this into position. So we just hold on to it and literally put the front in first and then the back. Now we're going to take a rubber band, and obviously we don't want it too strong because we don't want it actually spreading the plastic, the clear part at all. We just need it to be held in position. So what we're going to do is gently lower that in place. Now it's in place, we can just push in, manoeuvre around where we've got to get it in the right place like that, and then taking a cotton bud, lick it or moisten it and just rub off all the stuff that's hanging around the edges. Then that acts like a filler as well when you do it, and there we go, we just rub off all around all the areas, and we'll leave that to dry now completely for a couple of hours so it goes hard. Being PVA, if you wanted to, and if it went wrong, you could pull it off again, clean it off because it'll scrape off, and away you go again. So we'll just leave that like that. The canopy's now on. As you say, we just got a little bit of blue tack and push that down. Forget the black stripes, I just had a bit of black paint after, because I sprayed obviously the inside of the canopy before it went on. We've got the photo etch parts, dead simple, just cut them out and they go on here instead of the kit parts, so a straightforward replacement there for the inner blades. We've also put the photo etch strips onto the Sidewinder missile racks, so that's done as well. Just in a little bit of pre-shading as I've got going there on the actual missiles. The other thing as well I've done is I've popped together the exhaust nozzles. Now I've sprayed them black, just flat black for the moment, so they're all prepped and ready for a coat of Alclad a bit later on. So those bits are done. So we can honestly say we've now finished all the major construction for the kit, and we're looking like this. So actually we've got to a Harrier state. I've also put on the ventral, the skirts there. Basically we've got the openings still for the actual wheel wells and for the air brake back here. Now basically we've got the blast deflector down here underneath, which actually then folds down and makes a little skirt, if you like, for the hovering process. That one there, I'm probably going to just get the kit part, a little bit of blue tack, pop that over the top. Same with the speed brake, and then we're good to go. I've just sprayed this because I had a bit of black going just to see how that joint looked, and then what we're going to do, we're going to give it all a coat of primer to see how we're looking. We can have a final check then to make sure all the gaps, anything else we need to do, perhaps some rescribing, we can see at that point, and then we can give it pre-shading and we're on to painting. Spray time now. So what we're going to do, I've got some Valero Model Air, which is the neat one, so we're not going to thin order anything we like that. Pop that into our airbrush, check our paint flow. Okay, then what we're going to do, usual thing, we're going to paint the actual black areas around the cockpit first before we prime. Now, if you've been watching the others, you'll know why we do this. We do this so obviously the inside of the bars, when you're looking inside the cockpit, actually look black. Now this being the Model Air, it's quite a thin paint anyway, so we just need to go round and blow in. And at the same time, this is quite a nice way of checking all your joins around the canopy as well. If you've got some horrible looking joins there and gaps and bits and pieces, you can take care of those now. So there we go, we've done that bit. Just let that all dry, just like that, and we'll change colour now. Now we're going to prime. As you might know, I don't actually use a primer as such. I just use any acrylic paint I tend to have a lot of. Sometimes if I've made a mix of a particular colour and I've got lots of it left over, I'll use that as a primer. It's been known that I'll prime them yellow and grey and any other colour, because if it's going to have a heavy coat over the top, you won't notice it anyway. So in this case I seem to have a lot of medium grey XF20 left over. I do like to use the Tamiya paint as a primer. It tends to have more bite and it's a dead flat finish as well, whereas if you're going to use a Valero Model Air, most of the colours, they have a sort of a satin finish. So obviously we're going to need a flat coat for spraying onto that. So I'm going to change colours and we're going to get this all primed up. Right, now we've got the compressor running at about 22 psi, 25 psi, somewhere around that. We've just changed to our primer, probably up in the tank. So what we're going to do, we'll start on the bottom and we're just light misty coats, we're going to prime up. Now one thing to remember, obviously in here with the actual auxiliary doors at the top there, if you blast in there you might get some overspray from where we've tried to mask up as best we can, but it's quite handy. So if you spray down across or 90 degrees to it, hopefully you won't fill them up too much. So that's it. We're going to remember, usual thing, quite a dusty coat, quite a light misty coat to start with, nothing too bad, nothing too big. Randomise your paint. Remember, get in anywhere you can, all over, and we're going to work right the way round. If you need to go back over areas, don't go straight over them, just move on and you can come back to them afterwards. But because we're spraying at quite a high PSI here, it should stick quite well. We're not too worried about the finish because we might have to go round in a minute and tidy up any areas we can. Obviously we've taken care of any seam lines and rescribed most areas where we can. But if you like, this is your last chance to put right anything that's wrong, bad joins, bad marks. You know, this seam across the top here we've all spoken about a lot, where the wing joins. Obviously that's quite an important area. Working all our way around. Remember, don't worry about the paint job being a bad paint job here. This is a coat of primer after all. We can always go round and sand in and check things out, but really, as I say, this is your last area, if you like, to be able to sort things out. Now, a couple of areas as I'm doing this, as I think of it, I'll just do this bit a moment. That's it. Keep your, when you're spraying, especially around air intakes, quite light and dusty. So there we go, there's the front half all done. Okay, now the fun part, or one of the fun parts. Now, I've had a lot of people saying they're having trouble with pre-shading. Now, the big thing with pre-shading is you don't worry about it. It doesn't have to look nice. You don't want nice crisp panels. If it looks a mess, that's good. You know, really don't worry about it. I think too many people say, oh, I can't do pre-shading, it looks terrible, it looks awful, yours looks neat. You know, as I've always said, keep it random, keep it you know, uneven, keep it blotchy thingy, because what you're actually trying to do is project that type of weathering through onto your paintwork afterwards. Also, this part that we're doing now with the actual pre-shading, if you like, it's a shadow effect. You're not painting it on. It's nothing that you should really see heavily. The one thing is, people have said, can you do it with a marker pen and things like that? No, is the short answer to it, is because the edge is too hard. You can try and soften it down by sanding it afterwards. You could even run around and do it with a paintbrush, but you need to soften those edges, because those edges, if they're sharp, if they're very straight, they will stand out too much, and that is not what we want. We want nice, soft edges. Now, I'm using the Valero Model Air. It's neat straight out of the bottle, but don't forget, with these they're pre-thinned. If you're using it again, you want it a thick consistency, because we want it to hit and stick. We're running at 22 psi, which I won't, obviously on this one's double action, I could, you know, to change the airflow, but I won't, I'll run flat out. So think of your panel lines, think of your areas. Obviously, where you're going to get more build-up and dirt and grime, you want your shading to look a lot more. Areas where perhaps it's just light little bits and pieces, obviously not a lot. So we'll just pick out some areas. We'll start some big areas first. Obviously, we've got the ailerons and the flaps. Okay, so literally we're just going to go in and pick out some areas. Now, as you can see, it's not nice, it's pretty random. You know, sometimes you get people who do fantastic pre-shading and they look absolutely stunning, but you're not going to see it anyway afterwards. So all we do here, pretty big, because pretty big areas. All you need is a constant paint flow, constant airflow. If you're using cans, obviously, you know, I don't advise using cans. I think they're an expensive way of doing it and not great performance. Remember, needle clean. Pull off any excess you have. If you're using the actual diffuser on the end, make sure it's clean. If you're looking down and there's big blobs, because as you're going to get big speckly blobs out of it. Remember as well, one thing is, if it's too speckly, it means it's not thinned enough. If it's not thinned enough, you can add more thinners or make the air pressure higher. Actually, stick your air pressure up a little bit. This is a little bit speckly, so we're going to turn the air pressure up now, get in there to sort of 25 plus. Okay, and then all we do, we'll pick out the panel lines and work our way across. To be honest, I haven't got great flow here, so I'm going to, we just blow it through. Just like that. Obviously big areas like there. Okay, and then like that, and we're going to work right the way around the entire model. Obviously I'll start with the top half first, and we're going to work all our way around the entire thing. So there we have the pre-shading all done. As we said, nothing too neat, nothing too clever. It's literally whacking it on, get it on those panel lines, say big panel lines, big dirt. Now remember, it doesn't matter if it looks horrendous, it doesn't matter if you've got some real big splatty areas, because as you put on your other paint coat, you can just thin it down. More coats go on, the more you'll hide it. You know, in here we've got a little bit too much on this area here. We'll just put a little more paint in that area to thin it down a bit. But that's it now. We're going to let that dry for a little bit. We'll just give it a very light rub over with a very light sanding stick, hardly any grit, just to make sure there's no lumps and bumps left on there. And then we can crack on with the first coat.